Luis Robert is getting traded over to the Mets in exchange for Luisangel Acuña and a pitching prospect, Truman Pauly. Never heard of the guy, but 80 grade name, actually just taken in the 12th round of last year's draft. So there's that. Obviously, big upgrade for Luis Robert in terms of the lineup, the supporting cast that he's joining with the New York Mets. Honestly, park factors say that the ballpark is better as well. Not sure that I completely buy that. Chris, we were talking beforehand. We're like, I don't know. Is Luis Robert still good at baseball? I guess we're going to find out. This is a pretty good landing spot.
Yeah, I mean, relative to us, he's definitely good at baseball. Relative to
like me?
Tyrone,
You?
You, the three of us.
Sure.
Relative to like Tyrone Taylor, I'm actually not sure they have identical 84 WRC pluses over the past 2 seasons. Ugh. Taylor might actually be a better defender at this point. I genuinely have no idea if Luis Robert is any good anymore. And given what the White Sox got in return for him, it doesn't seem like MLB teams have a lot of faith that Luis Robert is good anymore. I'm not saying he definitely isn't, to be clear, but yeah, it's been a really rough couple of years for Luis Robert, and I was mostly willing to hand wave that away in 2024. Terrible situation, blah, blah, blah. Give him the benefit of the doubt. And then he comes out in 2025, and he's basically exactly as hopeless as he was. He cut the strikeout rate a little bit.
By a lot, not a little bit. It went from 33% to 26%. So,
he was actually worse as a hitter overall. And the underlying numbers are not very good anymore. I know we're only 3 years removed from a 38 homer, 20 steal season, but this is a guy who's had a ton of injuries over the course of his career, including like several hip injuries over the past 3 or 4 seasons, a couple of knee injuries. Like, it's possible he's just finished. I'm not saying that for sure. He was still a very good defensive player. He was still a very good base stealer last year. Still signs that he's not completely finished physically, but it's bleak. There's not a lot of optimism to take from anything he's done lately.
I like that the strikeout rate was greatly improved last year. I like that the pull air rate went up last year. Not an insignificant amount. And yet the batting average and the home run output, neither of them improved, even with those underlying improvements, which to me, I think says more about the top line numbers than the underlying numbers. Like I think Luis Robert, and the expected stats show it, he deserved better than he got last year. And we've been making the case, or at least I've been making the case. Look, I don't know. Obviously, this is just trying to make sense of what seemed like a near first round talent falling off a cliff. The White Sox have been so bad, and that maybe Luis Robert joining a legit contender, a lot of good players around him in that Mets lineup. He's going to be batting like 7th or 8th probably. Maybe that will help light a fire under him and recapture some of the pre-2024 form that made him so exciting in fantasy. I don't think I'd invest much in that possibility, but I also don't think that, let me see. So he's going 28th among outfielders on average since January 1st in NFBC competitions. I rank him 34th among outfielders. So he's a little ahead in ADP where I have him. But I don't have him so far below ADP that there's no chance I would draft Luis Robert. I think this improves my chances of drafting him slightly. He did steal 33 bases despite being injury plagued last year. So if he can get that batting average up to 240, if he can approach 20 homers and, as a 35 to 40 steal guy, I think he'll be great as your third outfielder. And I think there's a chance he far exceeds those numbers. I think it's a low chance, but I think it's a better chance that he'll be he'll do something like that than certainly than like a Tyrone Taylor would, but even like a Jacob Marcy, who is being drafted in the same range. Luis Robert has his peak is, I would imagine, is still higher than Marcy's.
I would definitely rather have Luis Robert than O'Neal Cruz, who's going 30-some picks ahead of him. I have Cruz ranked a little bit ahead, but in terms of their price, I think Robert's current price is a little more palatable, but
so straight up, you do prefer Cruz. You're just saying at cost.
I have them both ranked below their ADP, but I'd rather take the risk on the cheaper guy. Yeah. I just worry, like, you look at the rankings right now, he's 130.6 in ADP. Pages, Teoscar Hernandez, and Kyle Stowers are all within 2 picks of him. And then it's Jose Altuve at 113.5. Mm-hmm. I would guess Luis Robert jumps up ahead of Stowers, Hernandez, and Pages. Yep. Right, probably around the 120 range, if not a little higher moving forward. It just depends where the price settles, because it's entirely possible. Like, we're not psychologists. Even if we were, we have not talked to Luis Robert. I have no idea if that explains. It's an interesting theory for why he's been so bad, that he's just been completely unmotivated the last 2 years. It's also like, I don't know, does it scale? Like, the White Sox were significantly more competitive in 2025 than they were in 2024, and it's not like he was any better. So I don't know.
They weren't competitive, though.
Right, but they were.
They were better, but
they were alive. You know, like, that offense had some dudes.
Yeah. Well, so who are those outfielders you think he's going to jump ahead of now in ADP?
Teoscar Hernandez, Kyle Stowers, and Andy Pages. Don't...
And Altuve, too, right? Or
Altuve's about 15 picks ahead.
I would prefer all of those to Robert. I did before the trade, and I would still after the trade. But, you know, this is... It's not like Robert is so far behind that group that I could foresee no scenario where I draft Luis.
No, you might need steals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, again, we're fixating on the NFBC ADP because that's all we have, but that's such a squishy area of the outfield rankings that I imagine the ADP for all the various sites is going to be quite jumbled there, and Robert might sink to the bottom in ones that aren't selling out quite so hard for the, oh, what if this guy is a 2040 guy? Because look, he stole 33 bases last year in a partial season. And I don't think the home run pace was that far off from 20 either, with all the amount of time he missed.
Yeah, so Luis Robert wound up hitting 14 homers in 110 games. He has only exceeded 110 games once so far in his career. So, again, that's another factor. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. Scott, to your point, if you just look at the range of where Luis Robert has gone so far in January, his min pick is 95. His max pick is 158. So it's a pretty wide range, 60 picks within all the drafts that have been done so far. Chris, I agree with your point. I think Luis Robert getting traded over to the Mets, he's probably going to move up a little bit, probably in that like 110 to 120 range if I had to guess right now. What about Luisangel Acuña? Where does he play? Do we have any interest? It looks like the White Sox infield is full, so maybe center field. He's played 109 career games and has hit 248 with 3 homers, 16 steals, and a 640 OPS. I say this tongue-in-cheek, but he just had a 4-homer game in the Venezuelan Winter League. I wonder if the White Sox saw that. And that probably didn't influence this trade.
First 4-homer game in that league's entire 80-year history. Luisangel Acuña.
And they've had like a lot of like my in-laws are from Venezuela. My father-in-law has like a bunch of baseball cards from when he was a kid in Venezuela of all the Venezuelan leagues, and like they had some dudes playing over there, legit major leaguers playing over there. Nobody ever had a 4-homer game. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
So you guys have any deep league interest in Luisangel Acuña?
He ended up with 8 home runs in 39 games, by the way, in the Venezuelan Winter League, which is, you know, has hitter-friendly parks, and obviously the pitching isn't up to major league standards. But we have seen these kind of glimpses of power from him in the past. Remember filling in for Francisco Lindor at the end of 2024. He had a lot of hard hit balls. He had a few clutch home runs. He looked like, oh, maybe he is developing into something. I think the biggest problem with his power development has been, elevating the ball. He tends to be more of a slash and burn style hitter. His average exit velocity with the Mets last year, which was in a lot more at bats than that stretch filling in for Lindor 2 years ago, was only 87.9 miles per hour. So I think he's 23. You see some interest from the scouts at times that project more power onto him, and then he has a performance like this in the Venezuelan Winter League. I don't look. It's sort of like I was saying about Luis Robert. The odds are he is as you see him. What you see is what you get with Luisangel Acuña, like it is for Luis Robert. But is there that chance that he emerges as something more? He's young enough. There are enough optimistic scouting reports that, okay, maybe. So I feel like this was a trade between the White Sox and the Mets where they're both like, I don't know what more we could do with this guy. Obviously, the Mets don't really have an avenue to play Luisangel Acuña, and he's kind of at a point where they can't just keep stashing him in the minor leagues. So maybe he'll turn into something with the White Sox. You brought up before the show, Frank, you're doing a draft like a degenerate, and you said it's like pick 275.
Whoa, strays, dude.
It's pick 275. Should I go Acuña here? There's like Caleb Durbin still, and it's like, come on. I mean, the White Sox would be thrilled if they got a Caleb Durbin outcome from Luisangel Acuña.
If you're throwing a dart like that, like Carson Bench is going way later than that point in the draft. I still think he's a better stash. So there are definitely better dice rolls to take than Luisangel Acuña.